Hey gang, John Beckrell here with your Lake St. Clair Fishing Report, brought to you by Sportsmen's Direct. It is Thursday, May 8th. Water temperature at Belle Isle is down to about 53 degrees right now. I just checked it. Was up to a high of about 55 or so. Even actually this morning was up to 55, so it's come down today with the north winds that we've had blowing. Started to blow yesterday. So if you were one of those folks that were out there yesterday bass fishing and it was pretty calm and it was real nice, and then the wind just turned like a light switch and started blowing like 20, 25 miles an hour out of the north, you really got to experience that temperature drop yesterday, and you got to experience how quick Lake St. Clair gets whipped into a fury, which it was for some folks out there when it started yesterday. But sounds like everybody made it in okay, and then I'll get to all the other stuff. But kind of the water temperature is the news, though, at least around the shop, is that I was talking, I just said that water temp down at Belle Isle, it was down to 53, but we were still getting reports of water pushing 60 degrees from the point at Metro down through the mile roads, out to say about 10 or 11 feet of water or so. So all that water up in tight, trapped in there by Metro, for the last week has been pushing between 60, 61, 62 degrees. And that's kind of important. And I'll get to a little bit more about that in a minute. Satellite image actually got a pretty decent shot yesterday and today. And good news is the lake is cleaned up significantly. There's actually a lot more pretty darn clear water than there is dirty water now. Most of that dirty water has been pushed all the way over on that south shore on the Canadian side, and we've cleaned up significantly on the American side. Not like see the bottom kind of clear, but definitely clear enough to fish, and definitely clear enough to make the smallies feel comfortable, make the walleyes feel comfortable in certain areas, and hopefully make you anglers feel a lot better when you're out there as well with that nice stain to the water and pretty decent clarity. And it should only get better from everything that I saw going forward here. So for at least for the next week. Weather forecast right now looks like it's going to warm up considerably next week. And I think the highest wind day that we're going to have, hopefully, in the next several, happened today. And then now we're going to start, wind's going to start laying down a little bit, and we're probably going to get some southerly flow next week if we get that big warm up. But bottom line is, doesn't look like we've got any like big wind events coming in the near forecast. Other than it's a little questionable. They got it going up to 80, I think, next week, and they don't have the winds very hard out of the south to push it there. So once we get close to that, we'll see if we get a more significant south blow. But either way, I think it's going to have quite a bit of west in it, and so everything should be cool, and wind should not be a factor for about the next week or so. Now, the walleye fishing. The walleye are going strong still on both the Detroit rivers and the St. Clair rivers. I believe that the bite is picking up better up on the St. Clair River now than it is down on the Detroit. Detroit's starting to slow down a little bit. Hearing about more guys that are switching over from jigging. They might start out jigging in the morning, and then they switch over to crawler harnesses later in the day, move out a little bit deeper. So that's starting. White bass are starting down there on the Detroit River, although I haven't heard that it's like crazy and it's a problem yet, but it's slowly increasing. Now, for some of you guys, that's good news that you'd like to target white bass, so maybe now is the time to start going down there, especially down in the lower part of the river, and targeting those white bass if that's your thing. For a lot of other folks, white bass are a nuisance fish. Now, we are even starting to see some white bass showing up here, up in the main lake, although not in any significant numbers yet that I would say go out and target them, but they are starting up here, and that's kind of common about this time of the year. That's what we'll see. Now, one of the big things right now, and I mentioned that warm water that's tucked in there by the between Metro and down through the mile roads, that warm water is also pretty discolored water. And it's in pretty tight anywhere from the shoreline out to maybe 7-8 feet or so. And that could be changing right now with the wind. But the bottom line is the walleyes are stacked in there. So out in front of the beach, out in front of Gino's, 400 Club, down through the mile roads, there's pockets of fish. And the guys that have been out there bass fishing have been doing really good on both smallies and walleyes. In some cases, doing better on the walleyes than they have on the smallmouth. Guys have just started trolling harnesses, but guys have also been pulling boards out there with flickers and doing well. Ryan, Justin, and Dylan were out there. I think they were out there 2 days in a row catching wallies out there, pulling boards, and it looks like they were using flickers out there. But I also know guys that are using other crankbaits and pulling harnesses that are doing well. Now, the average size fish out there is running like 18 to 20 inches or so. There are some shorts, but there's a lot more of the bigger fish out there. Now, as long as that off-colored water stays in there, those fish will be in there. So the key thing is to pay attention to that watercolor. Fish those color transition lines, and don't be afraid to go in really shallow. Those fish in front of the beach are all the way up in right to the swim buoys, so that's like 6 feet of water. And that could be the case anywhere all along the mile roads, like down by the 400 Club, even out in front of Harley, out in the channel out there with that water coming out of the Clinton River, down by the spillway. Well, that 400 Club water really is the spillway water coming out. So pay attention to that watercolor, fish the watercolor, and I think you'll have a lot of success. You don't necessarily have to troll. These fish are in tight enough pods that once you get into them or once you see guys catching them, you can go in there and cast swim baits, and that's what a lot of guys have been doing. It's a lot more fun catching, especially the 18 to 20 inch class fish on, like medium action tackle. It's a lot of fun catching them on jigs and crankbaits, just casting them. So if you can do it, have at it. It's a lot more fun doing that. Let's see, smallmouth fishing. The smallmouth has been kind of tough for some of you guys still. You have one really good day when when Mother Nature is playing nice and she's on her meds, and then you get these blow days. And if you're like Dylan Grubb, on those blow days, you go in and you target largemouths up in the canals and near shore areas. And then when she plays nice, you can go out and you can tag some of these big smallies. Now, I think some of these smallmouth actually came in, did their business, and got out, and there's some smaller males still guarding. But I think the lion's share of the fish have really not come in yet because it's just the weather has just been kind of too crazy, and we haven't had the consistent temps. And this is going to be one of those years where you're going to have different pockets of fish in different stages of spawn all over the lake strictly because of the water temps. We've got that 60-degree water there along the mile roads and all the way from the beach down. I had guys that were up in Muscatmoot and said that water temperature up there was in the low 50s, or upper 40s, and that was just earlier this week, which is amazing, that much of a water differential temperature-wise on the lake. And so you're going to have like areas up in the north end that maybe don't warm up as fast, areas along the mile roads that have warmed up, and you're going to have bottom line is you're going to have fish in all different stages of spawn here for a while, and this is probably one of those years where we're going to see fish still spawning in June. And that's not all that uncommon on St. Clair because of all those temperature differentials that we have out there. But bottom line is there are fish that are going to be actively spawning. There's going to be fish that are going to be staging to come in, and there's probably a few post-spawn fish as well. I think the major part of all the spawning activity is probably going to happen on this big warm-up that we've got coming from this weekend on. If we get into the 80-degree temps and that water temperature shoots up, you're going to see a whole lot of activity, both of fishermen and the fish as well. So we definitely have that to look forward to. It's good to see guys like Garrett Samsel back in town. He's a guide that I follow all the time. I know in the wintertime he goes down south down to Florida and guides. He's back in town and he's chartering out there and there's doing the multi-species things too, catching lots of walleyes and big smallies. And so this is a fun time for everybody out there. I know I was talking with my buddy Joe Bauer, Smallmouth Heaven Guide Service, who was out there, and he's been doing really well on pulling those flicker minnows behind boards. So I think he said he got 41 walleye today, and they got 6 different species of fish. They got drum, and they got muskie, they got northerns, they got, of course, smallies and wallies, and just there's a bonanza of fish out there right now. So it's just, if you're into the multi-species thing, there's really no time like it is right now, and there is probably no easier conditions trolling wise than there is right now. I will say this though, when we're going to have a lot of boat traffic out there this weekend, and this maybe I know it's easier said than done, but if you can try when you're on those fish, try not to go right on top of those fish. If you're pulling boards and you're marking fish, try to work them with that outside edge of your spread. Try, especially in shallow, try not to like power right over top of those fish, especially if you're somebody that's running with an outboard engine. And the reason is that you will spook those fish. And if you don't push them out of there, you will at least knock their activity level down. So if you can go in and cast, or if you can drift, or if you control with electric trolling motor, you're going to have much more success, and everyone is going to have much more success because those fish are going to stay active longer. And if you're in an area that starts getting pounded too heavy with people, move to the outside, maybe move out deeper, or just pick up and move to a different area and get on some new fish, because what's probably happened is that school's gotten busted up or gotten spooked to the point that they're not as active anymore. So just move on, and there'll be another pod somewhere else that you'll be able to cash in on. And once you find them, you'll find that it's going to be really quick. It should be really quick limits once you are on those fish. So don't get discouraged if they shut down. Just move, find another pot of fish, and then work them. Update on the Clinton River Cutoff boat launch, or Crocker Road launch, as we refer to it. That was only shut down, actually, I think last Thursday and then Friday, and then it reopened. It was open, I think, Friday afternoon, and it was opened for the weekend. I was down there today just double checking. And guys were launching. Even with the weather that we had today, there was still probably 50 boats that went out of there when I was there at 8:30 in the morning. And the reports I'm getting is the water depth at the mouth now is about 3.5 to 4 feet. So that's plenty for most of you guys with your normal size fishing boats to go in and out of there. They do still have the crane or the dredge there on site. What they're planning on doing, I guess, is they're planning on doing some touch-up work, but not shutting the launch down while they do that. So they're probably going to pick and choose the time when they're doing some of that touch-up dredging, but it's not going to close again, supposedly. That's what I'm hearing. So that's the update on that boat launch. So yes, it is open. We've had quite a few phone calls today at the store wanting to know if that one is open, and that's an important thing, especially for you guys fishing for walleyes, because it's you're easy. Get out of the boat launch and you can go to your right and you're in front of the 400 Club. Go to your left and you're over by Gino's or heading towards Metro. So it's a very important boat launch for us at this time of the year for both smallmouth anglers and for the walleye anglers. So with all that said, I'm going to let you guys get to it. Prep those trolling rods, get those bottom bouncers ready, get those night crawler harnesses out, get those hooks sharpened, because the walleye are now in on the American side, and they should stay here and they should stay in tight as long as we've got good color in the water to hold them there. If it cleans up too much, just look for them to be pushed off out into that probably 12-foot range. So we'll see you at the shop this weekend, and we'll be ready for you with the tackle that you need. Hey gang, if you like our content, hit the little subscribe button and the bell icon, and you'll be notified as soon as we put out new stuff.